and welcome to today's mini lesson. So today's assignment, you're going to be comparing and contrasting two different animals from the text that you've been reading this week. The text that you've been reading this week, or that you should have been reading this week, is The Journey, Stories of Migration. This text can be found inside of your assignments. I have already attached the story to the assignment. Okay, so let's talk about the learning target. The learning target is, I can compare and contrast important details about two different kinds of migrating creatures. Okay, so you've already read The Journey, Stories of Migration, which comes from your Journeys book. Now let's go back to the learning target. I want to point out a few words. So let's look at the target vocabulary. I can compare. Compare in Spanish is comparar. And contrast is also another target vocabulary word. Contrast in Spanish is contraste. Important details, importante detalles. Important details about two different kinds of migrating creatures. Migrating is migrando in Spanish. Now, you know Miss Red, if I'm mispronouncing something right, you already know. Just correct me at home. I can't hear you, but I know you guys are probably correcting me if I'm not saying something correct. And creatures is criaturas. I know I probably messed that one up, but I'm trying, right? That's what matters. Okay. So we're comparing and contrasting important details about two different migrating creatures. And the creatures that you guys read about were the locust or langosta and the gray whale, the ballena gris. Okay? So the first thing I need to do when I'm comparing and contrasting is I need to know what compare and contrast means. Well, we've already talked about this in class. When we compare or comparar two things, we are showing how they are similar. And this is the hand signal that we used in class to show the similarities. Notice how my fingers are interlocking with one another to show that we're looking for how things are connected. When we're contrasting things, I told you guys to do your hands almost like a flower. Contrasting is you're learning how two things are different. Notice how my fingers are not connected anymore. They're separated from one another. So we want to compare to see the similarities, and we want to contrast to see how the two different creatures are different. Now, I am going to show you how to find the key details of one creature. You on your own are going to find the key details of the second creature, which you're going to find the details of the ballena gris or the gray whale. I'm going to show you how to find the key details for the locust or the langosta. Okay? So, when I'm looking for key details in informational text, I need to look for the 5 W's. Remember that big chart that I used to have on the wall in the classroom? As a matter of fact, it's still there. By your cubbies, it said key details. And it's who, what, when, where, why, how many, how much. Yes, that is how we find the key details. So I have to read the text and look for all of those important facts. So I'm going to go ahead and open my textbook. While I'm opening my textbook, you may open yours as well, or you can open the file that I've attached to your assignment. Okay? So the first page I want you to look at is page 241. It should be the heading, the locust. Because remember, I'm looking for the key details of the locust. So, I'm on 241. I'm just going to read aloud. There are few migrations as dramatic and frightening as when the desert locusts are moving across Africa. These insects are actually young grasshoppers, and grasshoppers usually do not travel. But sometimes too many grasshopper eggs are laid in one small area. And when the grasshoppers are born, there isn't enough food. The grasshoppers now have only one choice for survival: to migrate in search of vegetation. So good readers, stop and think. So I'm going to go back to paragraph 1. So I'm going to look for this. What, when, where, why, and how. And we already know the who is the locus because this is what we're talking about. The locus is who we're talking about. So let's see. It says in first paragraph, second sentence, these insects are actually young grasshoppers, and grasshoppers usually do not travel. Okay, so we know that a locust is a grasshopper. Let me back up a little bit. There are very few migrations as dramatic and frightening as when the desert locusts are moving across Africa. So here I just learned a key detail. Well, I learned that where they're going is across Africa. So that we know that to migrate means to move from one place to another. So this in the text it says that the insects or the locusts are moving across Africa. So in my where section, I'm going to put here across Africa. Okay, because this is where they're going. Now I'm going to keep reading. Look at the second paragraph on 241. Sometimes too many grasshopper eggs are laid in one small area, and when the grasshoppers are born, there isn't enough food. So in this section, this answers the question, why? So I'm going to ask myself, well, why are the grasshoppers or the locusts traveling? They're traveling because there isn't enough food. So in the why section, I'm going to kind of paraphrase that. Not enough food. Period. Okay? Okay? Now, I'm going to keep reading. And so I'm on page 242. And so these grasshoppers will begin changing. Their bodies will turn from light green to dark yellow or red. Their antennae will grow short rather than long. And when they rise up to fly together by the billions, they will be grasshoppers no more. They will be locusts. Okay. In this section, it answered the question, how? I'm going to read this again. They've been changing. Their bodies turn from light green to dark yellow or red. Their antenna will grow short rather than long. And when they rise up, they fly together by the billions. They will be grasshoppers no more. They will be locusts. Remember, how? What's our topic? Let's talk about that. Our topic is migration. So all of your questions, your key details need to answer who, what, when, where, why about your animal migrating. Okay? So it needs to all be about your animal and migration. So how do the animals migrate? How do locusts migrate? They migrate by the billions. So they travel together in billions, and there's billions of them. So for the how section, I'm going to write by the billions. Okay? And notice how I'm getting all of my information from the text and not my brain. I don't want to know what's in your brain. I want to know what does the text tell you. So now we just need what and when. Well, what happens, I think we've already read the what. What happens to make the locusts migrate? Let's go back. Do you see how I'm always talking about the topic and the animal? What happens to make the locusts migrate? Well, if we go back to page 241, look at paragraph 2. Sometimes there's too many grasshopper eggs. Sometimes too many grasshopper eggs are laid in one small area, and when the grasshoppers are born, there isn't enough food. So here we just learned that locusts migrate when too many eggs are laid? Okay. So we learned when they migrate. They migrate when there's too many eggs laid. Now, now let's keep reading. What happens next? I'm on 243. What happens next is even more incredible. When the locusts fly to the ground, they will eat every plant, every blade of grass, every leaf and bush and piece of vegetation as far as the eye can see. And though locusts do not willingly hurt, within minutes they will fly off again, leaving behind them a totally devastated landscape. So what are the locusts doing when they migrate? Well, they're eating everything. They're eating all of the food. And though locusts do not willingly hurt people, they only want to eat gardens, trees, bushes, grass. People may die because of the locusts. Because the gardens are empty of food, people may die of starvation. Now, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to skip over to let's go to 244. Desert locusts can also cause accidents. Locusts fly very high as well as 2 miles up in the sky. And this can make it difficult flying for planes that have to move through the locust cloud. The swarms can also interfere with trains, and millions of crashed locusts on a highway will make cars slip and slide. So we could even say for that one, how high do they travel? They travel as high as 2 miles. So that was another key detail that we could have added to that. Okay. Let's look at page 245, the second paragraph. The swarms today are not nearly as large as that, but they can still be quite big, often as much as 100 square miles. Imagine so many insects in the sky. So that answers the question what? It answers the question how much or how many. So if I wanted to add a section to the bottom to add another key detail, there could be more than one how, there could be more than one when, but you need to be reading and asking yourself and stopping yourself and asking, what key detail is answered in this paragraph, which is what I'm modeling for you right now. So if I say how many how many miles? 100 square miles. 100 square miles. Okay, SQ is square. If I keep reading, 246. As the locusts migrate and search for food, they ride the winds from one area of rainfall to the next. So that also could be where. So I'm going to add that. One rainfall to the next. So they go from one rainfall to the next. I wonder why they're going to areas with rainfall. Well, if they're searching for food, I'm pretty sure if there's an area that has a lot of rain, they must have a lot of, pausing, say it out loud. That's right, they must have a lot of food in that area because rain helps the plants to grow. So they're going to go to places that have food because that is why they're traveling and what they're looking for. Keeping going. So they travel on a sunny mornings and stop in the late afternoon to roost for the night. Oh, we saw that same word, roost, in the bat story. So this answers the question, they travel on sunny mornings. When? When do they travel? On sunny mornings. When they reach the rainy area, they mate and die. Their eggs will hatch and a new swarm of locusts begins moving. This will happen again and again until one day a swarm will return to the same place where the very first locust began. So, what will happen? When they reach the area, they mate and die. So here we go. Here's what. When locusts migrate to a certain areas, when they get there, they mate and die. 247. And if the eggs are laid are not too many, and if there's plenty of food when the new eggs hatch, there will be no locust swarms for a while. Only pale green grasshoppers moving quietly about. But someday, too many eggs will be laid, and the newly hatched grasshoppers will be much too hungry. These grasshoppers will begin to look a little different and act a little different. Then they will rise up together by the billions as desert locusts, and they will fly. So it's another cycle, the circle of life, just like the Lion King. So that is how you find key details in the text. Notice I had to read, but I had to pause after each paragraph, and I had to ask myself, what key detail is answered in this paragraph? Does it answer who, what, when, where, or why? Remember, when you're looking for yours, you're going to be asking questions to yourself like this. What do gray whales do when they migrate? Or what happens to make the gray whale migrate? Look at when. When do gray whales migrate? Or you could say it like another when question. When gray whales migrate, what happens when they get there? Where do gray whales migrate? Where do the gray whales go when they migrate? Same kind of question. Why do gray whales migrate? How do gray whales migrate? So remember, you're going to ask yourself after each paragraph your key detail questions. You need to state your who, and then you need to talk about your topic. All of it should be about them migrating. There's going to be other details in the text that's about the gray whale, but if it's not about the gray whale migrating, it's not an important key detail that you're looking for. So keep that in mind. Okay, so for Thursday, remember, you need to compare and contrast. So when you come up with all of your key details, the next step is you're going to have some things on this side. So now you're going to have this list that I did with you and this list that you've done on your own. So now you need to figure out what they both have in common. So if they're both traveling for the same reason, or they have the same why, that's going to go, you're going to write that key detail in the middle. Okay? So remember, if these two match, you're going to put that key detail in the middle, and you can even erase that if you want to make it neater. Okay? But here's what you need. You need to get full credit for all of these, you need to answer 3 facts at least over here. But you should be able to do all of them. 3 facts over here. You need to have 3 facts in that column. And then 3 facts in the middle. So, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do who, what, when, where, why. All of these in this column. But when you go and start to actually compare and contrast, I want to see 3 things that are different about the locust, 3 things that are different about the whale, and 3 things that are similar. This is just to get your ideas together. When you start to type, in your paragraph, I want to see. So this part right here, I want you to do on a separate sheet of paper. Don't do it in the computer. Do this part on a blank piece of paper. Once you have all of your facts, then I want you to take these facts and type them into the computer. So you're not going to have all of these here, because some of these from here are going to be similar to the things you find out on the other side. So again, if you have the same Y on the both sides, you're going to take that Y and you're going to put it in the both section. But if they travel to 2 different places, for example, the locusts, we know they travel to Africa, across Africa. But if the gray whale is traveling somewhere else, then you need to put that fact here because they're not the same. So remember, this part is on the computer. This part you need to do as a rough draft. So this is just like an organization tool that you're going to use. So you're going to go ahead and say, oh, if they have the same Y, you're going to draw your arrows there on your paper, and then you're going to type that in the both section. So that is Thursday's activity. Let's look at Friday. Reread the story. The author does not explain why whales migrate as a group and stay together when they're in the warm Pacific waters. This answer is not in the text. You're going to write what you think. So in your opinion, you think whales migrate as a group and stay together when they're in the warm Pacific waters because ... Okay? Give me about, let's say, 2 good sentences that make sense. Remember, this is not found in the text. It's something that you have to make an inference for. Okay, boys and girls, this concludes your lesson for today. If you have questions or if you're confused, let me know. But watch the video and try it first and then ask. Okay, have a good day.